Well, welcome everyone to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, traditional tax-favored retirement, part one of our series on tax advantage retirement means more spendable income with Tom Doncaster, registered financial consultant and retirement specialist. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thanks, Steve. It's good to be here.
I'm glad you're here. How long have you been in this business?
Well, let's see. I started in December of 1987, so about 30 years.
30 years veteran in this. This is a long time to be in this place. You've seen a lot of changes.
A lot of changes.
Tax changes, qualified plan changes, retirement changes.
You name it.
And have you seen, are the people in Washington State, the place where you do your practice, are they the kind of people that are they savers? Do they see the long term coming on retirement? What kind of people are they up there?
Well, I would say that they're probably the typical average American. You know, you read about the fact that prior to retirement, people make the majority of their money, and then it seems like the very next day after they retire, their income drops by at least, 50, 60%, you know? So we're finding the same thing to be true right there. You know, there's quite a few people that are very diligent in their savings and very serious on and staying focused on that. And then we also get the opposite end of the spectrum where people really desperately need our help.
Have you seen, are we putting enough money away for retirement, Don?
I don't believe so, no.
Tom, when I'm looking at qualified plans, which is this segment, I'm looking at everything from 403Bs, 401k, IRA. These are all have tax deductible favored treatment from the IRS for our contributions. I've noticed that people are kind of in two divisions of the camp in qualified plan. I have a defined benefit plan. I have a defined contribution plan. It seems like, and I want your comment, it seems like military, federal government, and state government are almost predominantly pensions, defined benefit, but almost all of us who are taxpayers and paying that pension are almost all on defined contribution plans.
Yes, I would agree with that. That's true. Very true.
Now, for the regular guy that's just going to his 401k, should he be participating in that?
I believe that they should, especially if there's a matching type benefit. You know, why leave money on the table? But I've also believed for the longest of time, at least past 20 years now, that people should take a balanced approach to how much goes into a tax-deferred qualified account versus a non-qualified versus one that's still tax-advantaged, but yet when the money comes out, it's going to be more on a tax-free basis. Okay,
so I just want to make sure for 401k, if I'm getting a match, I need to just take that.
Yes.
No matter what, I need to do that. All right. What if I'm in a really high, I'm talking, there's some pretty high, I mean, now, of course, President Trump's thinking about changing all this, but right now, we have a pretty high tax bracket at the higher uber end of the tax issue. Is that worth it for them to take the 401k just for the tax deduction alone?
Most definitely, I would say so, yeah. But, you know, bottom line is still the same, Steve. You're either going to pay it now or you're going to pay it later.
Well, let's talk about this because I looked at a shocking report. 401ks for the normal American. Now, we're not talking about the uber wealthy. We're talking about the normal American.
Sure.
Their average tax bracket is 22% blended rate today in our marginal progressive tax bracket. I looked at that number. I'm paying taxes on this today, knowing full well that in retirement, I have to pay tax on all this, and this could affect my Social Security.
Exactly. Yes, that is definitely true. And I would say that the majority of Americans out there are totally unaware of that. Yes.
Okay, so when I'm coming to retirement, there's no basis in my retirement plan. This is all taxable. The contributions, the gains in the contract, that's all taxable. And it flows over to the Social Security page of the provisional income test, and it can affect tier 1 or 2 taxation.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so people don't know this today. Like you said, they're surprised when they find this out. Now, when you deal with people that are coming to you for retirement planning, what's the average age they're coming to you for the first time to really do some serious thinking about their retirement?
I would say that 65 to 70% of the clients that we are dealing with are baby boomers, and they're generally 55 years of age and above.
So people around 55, we all get serious, right? It seems like we get a little seriousness.
The window's starting to close on the time frame horizon. That's correct.
I think it was a report by Prudential that said the danger zone of retirement is 5 years before you retire and 5 years after. When you think about that, they kind of like, hey, 5 years. I mean, if think of the people that were retiring in 2008. I mean, just think about that. I'm retiring in 2008, and I had the worst market meltdown since the 29 crash. Boom. That's your first thing out of the chute.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's tough.
Yep. Scared a lot of people.
It did. And by the way, I'm still apprehensive that it could happen again.
Well, I don't think it's a question of if. I think it's a question of when. You know, we've seen the market take its adjustments. I prefer to call them, you know, adjustments versus crashes like the media does. But still, it's going to happen, you know, because just like anything else, you know, there's a buy and demand out there that's going to adjust.
Do we need to de-risk ourselves as we get closer to that date of retirement?
I think that's very prudent to do that. Yes, most definitely. One of the things that we generally recommend is that folks, you know, at least 10 years before they retire. I realize Prudential says 5 years before and 5 years after. I think it's more appropriate to focus on 10 years prior to retirement of making sure that, number one, you're going to have the right or the correct amount that you feel comfortable with for accumulation, that you're going to, in essence, know at least within the ballpark of what your tax ramifications are going to be. And at the same time, that gives you enough time to make adjustments prior to retiring so that if you do need to, in essence, start shifting some of that tax qualified money over into perhaps non-qualified or maybe even a tax-free asset class category, I think that puts you in a very position of control.
Well, you said a couple things here. I wanted to stop on the first one. I like diversity of taxes. You know, you said there's taxable, there's tax deferred, there's tax free.
That's right.
So not only being diversified in your portfolio with your mix of mutual funds and ETFs or whatever, and annuities, but you're also mixing now your tax positions as well. And I'm thinking, you know, with a client, does a client, in your experience, 30 years, does a client know their effective tax bracket?
No.
Do you find this astounding?
No, very few of them do.
Okay. According to the stats, everybody says the biggest price tag you're going to have in retirement is going to be some kind of long-term care or assisted living event or some medical event. And that is true. The older you get, that's where the price tag is. But every year, you're still paying taxes in retirement. And I've looked at those numbers, and it seems like taxes themselves are the largest expense in retirement.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Okay, well, how do I think about that? You know, you said I can make some conversions from some of the, whether it's a 403B or 401k or an IRA. These are all tax qualified. I get the deduction up front. It accumulates tax deferred, but now I'm ready. I have to pay the piper.
That's correct.
Okay, and I'm trying to pay the least amount of taxes, so I got to really figure out how to take that money out in a strategic way. How strategic in your practice with your clients is tax management when you're taking this money out?
Well, that's one of the important aspects of our business, that we try to educate the client or the prospect to, in essence, either consider doing perhaps Roth conversions for one. If their employer offers a Roth portion of their 401k, we encourage them to take advantage of that. Granted, by doing that, they're going to pay the tax now versus the tax later. But
honestly, Tom, if you're not in a high tax bracket, should that if you're not getting a match, if you're not in a high tax bracket, why not do that?
Well, that's the point right there. I think it would still be wise if you're not in a high tax bracket to take advantage of the Roth component of, say, a 401k, because what's the max that you can put into that versus an individual Roth? Individual Roth is what, about $5,500, and then if you're 50 years of age or older, you get what, an extra $1,000 bump.
Catch-up provision, sure.
Whereas on the 401k, you can put up to what, salary reduction of what, $18,000?
It's up there, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get another what, $6,000 catch-up if you're 50 years of age or over. So that's what, $24,000. So that's what, more than.
Is that all deductible?
No, it's
okay.
not.
Only up to the certain threshold.
That's correct.
So the other part's going to the Roth, which is not deductible. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Now, for most people, you know, Senator Roth came in and he invented this thing about putting extra money aside. You couldn't get a deduction.
Correct.
But it did accumulate tax deferred.
That's right.
And when it came out, two things are important, and I think they're blockbuster issues. The Roth doesn't have any taxes to it. It also doesn't go over to your Social Security provisional income test for taxation over there.
That is correct. So you get a double whammy on that.
So you can't. That's a good. If you're in a low tax bracket, I don't know why you wouldn't do this.
No, sure, yeah. If you structure your portfolio correctly, you could literally go into retirement and never pay any tax.
Okay, now wait a minute. Let's just back up here. That's why. I mean, you just said this is a kind of a call to arms statement. If you structured it properly, you may not have to pay any.
That's correct.
I mean, all this week we're going to be talking about the way Tom looks at things, and that is an outrageous statement, and we're going to follow it up throughout the next segments to talk about this. Now, when we're talking about, you mentioned one thing, and we're going to get into it big time in the second segment. Not only contributing to your Roth, but Roth could be a helpful avenue for conversion from qualified plans, taxable,
right?
Pay a little tax today,
Sure.
and then convert it to tax-free. Is that something that you look at all the time with your retirees?
We do. Yes. As a matter of fact, as we put proposals together, we look at the overall picture of a client's position or a prospect's position, and we come back with some suggestions, some recommendations. And that's usually one of them right there, because most of the time, once again, going back to what you just said earlier, Steve, people are totally unaware of what their marginal tax rate is. And more so, as they go into retirement, what we're finding is that those that, in essence, painted themselves into a corner because they've skewed everything to pre-tax qualified accounts, some of them are finding themselves in a much higher tax bracket at retirement than while they were working, stockpiling the money away.
And doesn't that go against everything we were taught as planners 30 years ago?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Well, listen, don't forget to watch part 2 of our series on tax advantage retirement means more spendable income. And the second part is not in a high tax bracket, you should consider a Roth IRA. And remember, before moving forward with any ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money. The name of it.